Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video I would like to tell you about money, power, and specifically why 14 African countries are still not fully free even until today. But don't worry, I will explain everything in very easy words so that you guys can understand and take the lesson from this explanation. But before that, I would like to introduce myself first. So, my name is Hasya Ratu Shaina, and my student number 123231106. Okay, so first, imagine that you're holding two banknotes. There are from Senegal and Mali. Physically, they are totally different, right? Like we can see from the designs, the colors, and then the symbols. But here's the twist. So the banknotes come from the same money system, and that system is controlled by the France. So this is what happens to 14 African countries that use the CFA franc. These countries have their own presidents, their own flags and governments, but their money is still controlled by France. You might still wondering and guessing like how did this happen? So, a long time ago, before colonization, African societies used their own forms of money, like cowrie cells, to trade. And then France colonized many African regions. So during that time, France forced African societies to use French money and sell African raw materials cheaply to France. So this made France richer, and while Africa became economically weaker. And then later, after World War II, France had many problems and needed resources. So Africa wanted independence, but France did not want to lose control. So in 1945, France created a new currency called the CFA franc. So CFA stands for Chartered Financial Analyst, which is simply is currency used by 14 African countries, but it is controlled by France, so not by the African countries themselves. And then, is this a problem? Well, definitely yes. And here is why. So, countries cannot grow. Imagine that you run a small shop, but your money is so strong that your prices look too expensive, like too high. So people don't buy from you. You cannot sell much. You cannot expand. This is what happens to CFA franc countries. So their money is tied to the euro, so they cannot adjust it for their local economy. And the journal article also gives this exact data. Like it states that only an average growth of 1.4% a year for CFA users compared to 2.5% average growth for all of sub-Saharan Africa since the CFA was back to the euro. This means that CFA countries grow slower than other African countries. And then next problem is money leaves the country because the CFA franc is linked to Europe. It is easy for rich elites to move money to European banks and foreign companies to take profits out of Africa. So the money that should help Africa ends up outside Africa. And the next problem is the France gets the benefits. So France still gains many advantages like cheap oil, cheap raw materials, and stable access to African markets. And because CFA money must be kept in French banks, so France continues to benefit even more. And then there's another story about countries that try to leave the system. For example, Guinea. So in 1958, Guinea said no to the CFA franc. They wanted to be full independence, but then France reacted strongly and punished Guinea by cutting off financial support and removing equipment and workers and sending fake Guinean banknotes to destroy the economy. But fortunately, Guinea survived, but they suffered a lot. And then another is Togo. So Togo's first president, Sylvanus Olympio, also tried to leave the CFA system, but in 1963 he was assassinated. So many people, like including historians, suspect that French involvement, and official records remain closed. So these two events scared many other African countries. They did not want to risk violence, chaos, or punishment. So, what can we learn from this story? So, the CFA franc teaches us that independence is not only about flags, borders, or leaders. So, true independence means controlling your own money, your own economy, and your own future. And right now, 14 African countries still carry a money system created during colonization. I think that's all for me. Thank you for listening. I hope this video helps you understand how money, power, and history are still connected until today. Goodbye.